I'm Larry Fedoruk, and this is Later That Same Life, my weekly podcast. This series is meant to reflect the mood of my former radio talk show. Some days topical, some days personal. Either way, there's always a story.
Season 3, Chapter 4, The Great Race.
When I was in my mid-20s, I was in the Great Race. That's what we called it. I traveled around the world in 8 days. I was doing a radio morning show in Winnipeg, and the Great Race was a radio promotion. We had an expression in radio, I don't know if they still use it. If you take ideas from other radio stations in the city, that's called stealing. But if you take ideas from stations in other radio markets, that's called research. We had researched the Great Race idea from a few American radio stations. To this day, only a handful of stations have ever staged this promotion. And as far as I know, Winnipeg and radio station 630 CKRC was the only one to ever do it in Canada. It was my friend and colleague Reg who originally researched it and brought it to the table and convinced management and sales that we had to do this. Here's how it works. You take your two most popular radio personalities, usually the morning show host, that was me, and the afternoon drive home host, the other guy. On air, a friendly but competitive rivalry is manufactured. We'd call each other's shows, go on air, and engage in one-upmanship. My favorite sports team is better than your favorite sports team. My listener fans are better than yours, and there's more of them. I'm taller than you. Oh, it was goofy and fun. Over time, this escalates until a third party steps in, a manager, another on-air colleague, and announces on the station that this rivalry must stop. How can we end this feud? What ultimate contest could these boys engage in to settle this once and for all? Then you take suggestions from listeners. We had many. A boxing match, a radio marathon, a debate at the university, arm wrestling, on and on it went. Until somebody says they should race around the world. And if nobody says that, you plant someone to say it, but in our case, it was genuinely suggested. Then the radio station says, yes, that's the one. We'll do that. Yeah, again, so it's somewhat manufactured, but what's real is I raced around the world in 8 days, trying to beat the other guy home. That happened. An experience of a lifetime. Our itineraries were planned by Eaton's Travel. Eaton's and Eaton's Travel were sponsors of the Great Race. Yeah, Eaton's. That should give you an idea of how long ago this was. We hyped the hell out of this on air. It was the talk of the town. We took suggestions from listeners as to who should host our shows while we were away. You know, the mayor, members of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, local entertainers, Burton Cummings' mom. And these people all stepped up to host the show while we were gallivanting around the globe. The Great Race was also unique for radio in its time because it wasn't a radio contest.
10th caller now wins 2 tickets to see Robert Redford's latest movie. Hey, remember, when you answer your phone, don't say hello, say, I listen to CKRC, and you could be on your way to Jamaica.
Contesting. How about you just have a good radio station instead of trying to pay me for listening? But these were radio's best ideas at the time. This was different. It was an event. And what is in it for the listener? Entertainment. Involvement. Living vicariously through these two radio nuts embarking on a wild journey. It beat the heck out of winning the latest Eagles album. A radio promotion, not a radio contest. This was huge. It was determined that from Winnipeg I would travel east and my competitor would go west. But we kind of faked that as well. On the travel day, we did a remote broadcast from the airport, which involved a coin flip. Call it, Larry. Heads. It's heads. Which way would you like to go? I'll go east, I think. Yeah, I'll choose east. And I was handed my plane tickets and itinerary. We had matching outfits from Levi's that included a cool jacket with a Canadian flag pin, which we were told to always wear. You don't want people thinking you're American. Okay, got it. A camera from Olympus, film by Kodak. One suitcase from Samsonite, designed to be a carry-on, with the instruction, never check your bags. You just won't have that kind of time. All our flights and hotels were prepaid. We were given a few grand in cash and traveler's checks from American Express to cover meals, taxis, souvenirs, tours, etc. In each city, at any opportunity, we were to phone the radio station and go on air, telling tales, updating our progress. Other instructions included: be sure to make all your flights and hotels. Eat when possible, but avoid huge heavy meals. Sleep whenever possible. And when sleeping at a hotel, always arrange for a wake-up call. Again, never miss a flight, or the whole schedule is screwed. And above all, avoid alcohol consumption as much as possible. Good luck. I remember that day, waving goodbye, boarding the plane. All of our flights were coach, but the airline in Winnipeg had heard about the race. Who hadn't? And as a goodwill gesture, bumped me up into first class. First class. I had 3 glasses of champagne while we were still sitting on the tarmac, and a buzz going as we began to taxi. As the Loudon Wainwright III song goes, drinks before dinner, wine with dinner, after dinner drinks. Then I had a nap and a hangover, and we hadn't landed in Toronto yet. Remember, I'm in my mid-20s. I believed I was indestructible. The next thing you know, I'm in Lisbon. Lisbon! I can't believe it! I'd never been anywhere. I was a dumb kid from Saskatoon. The fact that I had moved to Winnipeg already made me the explorer in my family. Oh, he lives so far away in Winnipeg. And wow, here I am in Lisbon, looking out my hotel window. Again, this was ancient times. So to call Canada, you usually had to go down to the front desk, have the clerk call the long-distance overseas operator. They would try and set up your call. Could take about an hour. You had to wait in your hotel room. They would call you when your connection was ready. Prehistoric. Now, normally, if you were in a place like Lisbon, it would be for at least a few days, right? You'd walk around, see the sights, take some bus tours. For the Great Race, no time for that. That's partly why we were given all this money. You go to the hotel concierge, you tell them you need a car and an English-speaking driver for a few hours. How much? A few hundred? Done. Hey, driver, I got 3 hours. Show me the highlights. All right, first we go to the statue of Vasco da Gama. Oh yeah, Vasco da Gama. Yeah, I remember that name from high school. I think he was our quarterback. No, wait, yes, Vasco bro. Da Gama Rama, Lama Ding Dong. Cool. What a dickhead. Actually, I did begin to absorb the history. Lisbon was pretty awesome. Next day, Madrid. I only had a few hours there, free time noon to 4. Hey, why is everything closed? It's lunch. Oh, okay, cool. A day later, Rome. I'm already bagged by Rome and running on pure adrenaline. It's only 3 days into an 8-day adventure. I had just over 24 hours in Rome, and I was checked into the coolest little tucked-away boutique hotel. My room had these large church-like windows with heavy wrought iron latches. The windows opened inward, but then also heavy wooden shutters that opened up onto the street. I was only on the 2nd floor. I felt like I could just jump down onto the cobblestone street. It was bustling with little market wagons and cafes and people. As I looked to the right, there, perfectly silhouetted against the setting sun, the Colosseum. Since I had already completed my call back home the night was free, what I should have done was catch up on some sleep and get an early start on my next day private car tour. But it's Rome. The streets of Rome await. Like Bob Dylan said, ancient footprints are everywhere. I need to add some of my own. I walked to the Colosseum. It was closed to tourists by then, but I walked all around it. As it grew dark, a half a dozen young men approached. "I see you are from Canada," one said. "You know, it's not safe to be around here after dark." They kind of surrounded me, and I took what he said as a nice way of telling me they were about to rob me. Turns out they were all about 16, 17 high school students from the Black Forest area of Germany, in Rome on a school trip out after curfew. Fritz really knows Rome. He always came here as a child. Stick with us. We know where to go. They all spoke terrific English. We walked and talked and laughed. About 11 o'clock, we ended up at the Fountain of Trevi. We all threw in some coins. There was this restaurant right there, and I said, "I'm starving, let's eat." "We have no money for such places," they said. "Oh, I got money," I said. "My treat." Me and 6 German students in a cafe in Rome late at night. We ordered pizzas. I know. How cosmopolitan. What a gourmand. Because, you can't get pizzas anywhere else in the world but Italy. Hey, other people at other tables were having pizzas. And when in Rome, that's just an expression, but I was actually in Rome. We all drank wine. No one asked any questions about that. I picked up the tab. That was fun. We parted ways. I don't know how far we had walked, but I'll tell you, the cab ride back to my hotel took 45 minutes. I had like 4 hours sleep, continental breakfast in the lobby, and I was hiring a car for my daytime tour. Saw the sights, drove around, got out here and there, took pictures. I actually ran into the German students. Wow, I'm in Rome for just a day, and I'm bumping into people I know. Went into the Vatican, exited through the gift shop, bought my mom a rosary at the Vatican. The ultimate Catholic kid gift, right? I remember the Vatican gift shop also had a cooler with some Heinekens, so I picked up a couple of those as well. Off to the airport to fly to Athens. If you can imagine how tired I was in Rome, just think how I felt in Athens. Athens is where I was going to meet up with my counterpart, my competitor, who was flying in from Singapore, I think. He was arriving the next morning like 8 o'clock. We'd have almost the whole day together before I had to fly out at 5 p.m. But this is 7 p.m. the day before. I am so tired. I'm just going to go downstairs to the hotel cafe, not even the big dining room. I mean, I could have, I had money, but just the cafe. Quick sandwich, and then I'm going to come back and go to bed. The waiter sees my Canadian flag pin. "Oh, you're from Canada. I want to move to Canada one day. I will serve you. I can practice my English on you." He started buying me beers. Oh no, I'm getting a second wind. Or was it a third or ninth? By this point, I'd lost count. He says, "Hey, I'm off in an hour. Why don't you come out with me and I'll show you Athens?" Judgment call. Yeah, let's do it. As I'm waiting for him outside the hotel, I see him coming up the sidewalk with another guy. They are arm in arm, and they are kissing each other on the face. Now, I don't care about that. I just started to wonder what kind of activity they would be expecting from me. Turns out it was his brother. And the three of us began our Athens sojourn. Nightclubs, markets, street parties. It's 4 a.m. again. And on a little pathway, he pointed up to a third-story window with what looked like a flickering candle behind a shade. And he says, "You want girl? Up there." Ah, gosh, no, I'm good. It's not that the thought of it didn't appeal to a, 20-something drunk kid. I just thought, no, probably not the best idea. He says, "Okay, but if you come back here tomorrow, I'll tell you what to do. You take $20, put there in your shirt pocket, leave shirt on the whole time. Then only give $20 to girl. You know how you say, after the f***." That was the first time I had heard the F-bomb internationally. And used correctly, I might add. I started laughing. I said, "Oh my gosh, you know the F-bomb?" "Oh, yes, trying to learn English." his first word I learned. The fuck. It was hilarious. We part ways, and again, 45-minute cab ride back to my hotel. A couple hours later, my phone rings. It's my competitor colleague. He's up in his room. Okay, let's go. Let's see Athens in the daytime. We made our way to the Acropolis and the Parthenon. Then suddenly, a group of helicopters flying over in formation, followed by fighter jets, then bombers. We look down the hills and all the streets are suddenly covered with tanks and army vehicles. We started freaking out. We found a doorway and hid. Finally, there was a passerby and we said, "What's going on?" "Oh, military parade. Greek Independence Day. Big celebration." No wonder everybody else seemed pretty calm except for us. We kept walking. We ended up in a little neighborhood. It was just like a suburb like you'd find almost anywhere in Canada. Across from the playground was a little cafe. It was family run. We get to talking. They invite us into the kitchen. We all sit at a big table. We meet the kids. The neighbors come over. Food keeps coming. And beers and wine. Athens. Fantastic. Finally, I had to go to the airport to make my next flight. See you in Winnipeg, my friend. I will be there first. Next leg was a 17-hour flight to Bangkok, with a quick fuel stop in what was called Bombay. If you've never been on one, here's how a 17-hour flight works. You get on, you meet some people, you talk, you have some drinks, you talk some more, you have dinner, you watch a movie, you sleep. And when you wake up, there's still 12 hours to go. An eternity passes. But I'm in Bangkok, in a beautiful, lush, high-end hotel. Nice. Downtown. It's 100 degrees outside, 150 with the humidity. I'm in the lobby bar. Just a couple of fruity cocktails to cool down. I'm approached by a man. "I see you're Canadian," he says. "I'm from Vancouver. I work for an oil company in Vietnam. I'm in Bangkok visiting my sister. May I join you?" We have drinks. He tells me a sad story. So he's got all this Vietnamese money. He shows me wads of it, but they won't exchange it for local cash at the hotel desk. And he's got to get a cab out to his sister's, and then she'll get him some Thai money and he can pay me back in the morning. Now, I think I'm being scammed, but he's so good. He's naming small Canadian towns and people in politics and media. Oh yeah, I know them. I'm just impressed with his spiel. And also, I'm a little afraid. So I give him 100, and somehow, stupidly, my hotel room number, so he can leave the money with the front desk. I also pay the tab. Next morning, I hire a car. I had read about this market. "Take me to the market that's all on the water." "Oh, no, he says. "That's too much for tourists. I know a much better place." He takes me to some godforsaken, barren outback area outside of town. Oh yeah, this is where I die. Hardly any other tourists there. Just a few suckers like me. First thing I see, a glass box on a stand with a cobra in it. A sign in English says, "Cobra fights mongoose." We each pay 10. A handler comes over and throws a mongoose into the box. And they battle. It's like some whirling Tasmanian devil cartoon. I had to walk away. I don't know who won. Then my driver takes me to the wharf for the Jungle Boat tour. He says, "I got you a boat. It's $50 per person. But this boat, I got it all for yourself. You don't have to share it with anybody." Great. I gaze into the filthy brown water. A dead dog floats by. "Okay, here's 50. "Well, the boat holds 8 people, sir. And he's willing to take you by yourself. Do you understand?" "Oh, so how much? I'm sorry, 400? I'm surrounded on the wharf, and I don't think I should jump into the dead dog water, and they don't look like friendly German students." So I paid. We take the tour. As far as I could tell, this was a straw hut, poverty-stricken neighborhood. One hut actually had an Al Pacino poster in it. I stared at it until the woman and her daughter both gave me the finger. 2 more dead dogs floated by. I was done. When is this over? Boy, this was worth the 400. Thanks. Back in the car, I finally said, look, pal, I need to get some postcards and some souvenirs, because we were instructed in each city to get as much proof that we were there as possible. Can you please just take me to a store where I can get that and then back to the hotel? Please. Oh, yes, of course, sir, yes. He pulls into a dark alley. Tall buildings, no windows, one little door. Okay, this is where I die. He gets out and motions me toward the door, where he gives some kind of code knock. 2 heavy, 3 quick. The door opens. We step inside to what appears to be a full department store. Bright lights, like suddenly I'm in Macy's or the Bay. There's counters and racks and displays and an escalator and cashiers. But it's off some dark alleyway. All right, I'll pick up a few postcards, some stamps, a piece of jade. The cashier tallies it up and says, you no buy enough. You have to spend this much. 4 guys show up to help me. Yes, I will go back and buy a scarf. Yes, more jade. I don't know, this piece of junk. Finally, I had bought enough. I was out and back into my hotel room, locking the door as quick as I could. But I still didn't feel safe. A Vietnamese oil man is coming to rob and kill me any moment. I actually moved some furniture up against the door. Managed to doze off, finally. Like within an hour, a large rumbling startles me awake. I look down onto the street. Tanks, military vehicles, armed soldiers marching. Thailand Independence Day? I turn on the TV. There was some English, some subtitles. I managed to discern that there had been a military coup, an attempt to seize control of the Thai government. Stay off the streets. I called the front desk. They tell me the same thing. Needless to say, I am up. I'm up until morning. One night in Bangkok makes a hard man humble. And that song wasn't even written yet. I couldn't even quote it. I got to get to the airport. I cautiously made my way to the front desk. Hey, by the way, I don't suppose anyone left a large envelope of cash for me here now? No. Yeah, okay. Listen, never mind. Can I get to the airport? Oh, yes, of course. As it turns out, there was a military coup, but not a very good one. They had only managed to take control of state-run TV and radio, and little else of any government authority. It was business as usual. I think when my plane actually lifted off the tarmac, it was the first time that day that I had actually exhaled. I was never so glad to be leaving a place since the time I walked out of the Osmonds concert. Lovely city, I guess, a lot of lovely people, I'm sure. That just wasn't my experience. I found out much later that back home, news of the coup was a major deal, and radio station management had called our local MP, who called Foreign Affairs in Ottawa, who tried to reach the consulate in case they had a trapped citizen in Thailand. But I was out. Destination, Tokyo. I only had about 8 hours there, but I had a hotel room. Hate the stereotype, but even over 40 years ago, my room had an instant-on, state-of-the-art color TV with a baseball game on it. Calling Canada was direct touch-tone dialing from my room. It took 30 seconds. I wandered around downtown Tokyo. It was pretty spectacular. I was struck by the fact that everyone was wearing these surgical type of masks. How ridiculous and paranoid. That evening, I was flying out to Hawaii on Japanese Airlines. JAL, as it was also called, it was known for being efficient and luxurious. I said to the ticket person, for like a week, I've been sitting in the back of noisy airplanes in narrow little seats. If there is anything near the front of the plane with an open seat beside me, I would just love to get that seat assignment, please. Actually, she said, there's no first-class service on this plane, so it's all the same price, and there is a seat up front in first class. You can have it. I am walking onto this big 747 with a first-class boarding ticket. She was wrong. There was first-class service. I'm in a big, comfortable seat, sitting next to a well-dressed older man who introduces himself as president of an Ecuadorian mining company. Ah, yes, I'm a disc jockey from Winnipeg. Media magnate. Yeah. He had a voice that was the timbre of Ricardo Montalban. He told me about a major deal he had going with the American government. I told him I knew Burton Cummings' mother. He didn't know who that was. I drank martinis. He drank scotches. And after a while, we switched. The stewardesses, and yes, they were stewardesses, halfway through the flight, changed into traditional Japanese costume and makeup. They served our meals that way, and then performed some songs. I guess that was my deep dive into Japanese culture. After a brief nap, I was wakened by the announcement that we had begun our descent. Out the window, it was sunrise over Honolulu, and I could see the beautiful Pacific. What a moment. What a moment. Tucked into the nose of the first-class section of a big 747, Hawaiian sunrise, and Ricardo Montalban snoring quietly next to me. Short time in Honolulu. I walked the beach barefoot, looked around a bit, then had to catch my flight to Vancouver. From there, it would be home to Winnipeg. By this point, I actually wanted to just get home. Great adventure, but I want to be home. Barely any time in Vancouver at all, and now I'm flying across my home country, on my way to win the great race. My flight was due a half an hour later than my buddy's flight, but he was flying into Winnipeg from New York, so he still had to go through customs. That would be my advantage, because I had already gone through customs in Vancouver. All I had to do in Winnipeg was step out of the plane and run to the actual finish line. I think they arranged it that way, hoping that we would actually be in the same hallway together, literally sprinting side by side against each other, trying to be the first to break the tape and win the race. There was another remote broadcast set up to chronicle the end of this big event. It was a happening, man. Incidentally, talk about back in the day. Going through customs in Vancouver with a passport stamped with about a half a dozen cities in as many days. No questions. Welcome home, sir. Have a nice day. Thank you. I will. Oh, and just for the record, I know you didn't ask, but I do not have any prophylactics filled with drugs in my anus. You take care now. My plane lands in Winnipeg. I disembark. I run through the airport. I get to the spot, only to see my colleague being interviewed as the winner of the great race. Because as I said, back in the day, when customs in Winnipeg found out he was one of the great race competitors, they breezed him through. And with that, his half-hour disadvantage was negated. He was the clear winner. There was a large crowd. Everyone from the station was there. Our girlfriends, happy to see us. What an unforgettable adventure. I did some calculations, including naps on planes. Over the 8 days, I had slept about 31 hours. Exhausted. But what a week. Of the thousands they gave us as spending money, I had just over $9 left. About a week later, the station held a big party, and we showed all the pictures and souvenirs we had picked up. A lot of people still didn't believe we actually went on this trek. They thought we were holed up in a motel in Portage la Prairie for a week, just faking it. Great race deniers. Can you imagine? Oh, we did it. I've traveled a lot of places since that great race, but I've never been back to Europe or Asia. I did toss those coins in the Fountain of Trevi, so that means I'm coming back. I think that's based on science. I'm glad that back in the day, I went with my instincts. Don't sleep. You may never get here again. Get out and experience it. I've tried to apply that to the rest of my life as much as possible.
Later That Same Life is written, voiced, and produced by Larry Fedoruk. LarryFedoruk37@gmail.com. Subscribe to Larry's podcast YouTube channel. Get automatic notifications with each new episode.